morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Tina from Nayan Consulting, and allow me to welcome you in our workshops. This topic session is getting ready for the carbon market, the common pitfalls in the validation and verification of the projects. And today, our esteemed guest speaker is coming from our own firm, which is our managing partner, Miguel Rescalvo. So he will tell about the main topic of this common pitfalls in the validation and verification projects. But first, before going to the main speaker topic, allow me to introduce the agenda that I will introduce about the project design and development one before we go to the main topic. So but first, I wanted to know, I see some familiar faces, but do we have like the first who is from here is coming at the first time of the first speaker? Oh, yeah. All right, then I will like introduce about us first and also introduce about what is this initiative of inFuse is about. So yeah, Nayan, we are Nayan, international firm that focusing on carbon pricing and just transitions. But because of this topic of the workshop is the carbon market, so one of our focus is carbon pricing. And one of the important things in the carbon pricing that we focus about, including four things: operationalization of the Paris Agreement, the carbon pricing instruments, and the mitigation activity design, and also the assessment and diligence. And so that is one of the kind of project activities that we do in carbon pricing and carbon market. And so next slide. So yeah, this is like we have experience in origin already since like 2018 from the Europe, Latin America, and also Africa and Asia, including Indonesia itself. So that's just kind of a brief introduction about naming. So next slide. Allow me to introduce about the inFuse workshop, inFuse Accelerator. This is our initiative. Next slide. This is what is actually inFuse Accelerator. This is like kind of our initiative to create an ecosystem together, like all of you, including all of you as STEM participants, support organizations in their decarbonizations and participation in the carbon markets. And one of the activities that we do in achieving this, next slide, is to empower organizations, including this kind of workshops. We already started since 12 August and building powerful community. One of how we do that is by, I think you've already accessed, register through this workshop by registering to our website, a social website platform. So if you don't already register to that website, please do, because that's kind of, how we actually access, how we actually update kind of update the articles, update workshops, and kind of in how we actually wanted to build this community together. So another thing that we wanted, one of the initiatives that we wanted to explore is about self-paced online courses and also mentorship kind of a guidance one by one about the things. But this is like coming soon. So please do, if you wanted to know more, please do access to the website if you still haven't got registering to the inFuse.eu. So next slide. Yeah, this is the website that we talk about. Next. And yeah, please, if you haven't accessed them and also registering them, please do register and just saying hello, and we can just build this community together. So yeah, I think that's the brief introduction for the inFuse. So I wanted to, going forward, before we talk about the common pitfalls from Miguel Rescalvo, I'm going to go with the introduction of the PDD, or the PDD introductions. And so, yeah, next slide. So what is a PDD? PDD is a project design document. It's basically a document which describes the detail of the planning of the carbon project and how it meets each of these requirements of a particular carbon project standard. This is like one of the examples of the carbon registry standards. There is PERA, Planning People, Gold Standard, America Carbon Registry, and Climate Action Research, and many other things that I couldn't told you one by one, but this is one of the samples, and they have their own methodologies, which is already aligned, and also aligned that they have their own form and PDD design itself. So, yeah, each of these carbon registry have their own requirements and their own standard. So, next slide. So, to prepare the PDD, basically, like the standard is we need to understand and follow the terms and the rules of the scheme first, including the regulations of the including the regulations of the implementation of within the country itself. And the second is after we understand the rules and the scheme that we actually wanted to touch upon, is we need to know the eligibility and methodology that we need to choose to align with the carbon project that we wanted to develop. So yeah, we need to know the methodology and so we can know the correct calculation, the correct methodology to calculate the GSG and the additionality of the project itself, the project that we wanted to develop. And after we choose which methodology is the correct one, we need to follow the PDD template or form, because that's what because as you know, as I mentioned previously, that its standard, its registry have their own standards, so we need to also follow their template or form after we choose the methodology or registry itself. And doing that, following that, in the process, we need to also document the evidence, because after we provide the PDD, it needs to be submitted and verified by the PVB bodies. So, yeah, I think that's basically the main flow how we can actually prepare the PDD. Next slide. Verification. Validation and verification bodies. Sorry. Validation and verification bodies, or LVP, lembaga verifikasi dan validasi terkait Indonesia-nya, Pak. Yeah. So that's the general flow in how we can actually prepare the PDDs. Next slide. So yeah, first, as the general flow, I've said that we need to understand and follow the terms and rules of the scheme. This is in Indonesia itself, the regulation. This is the landscape of the regulation. Have already been published by the ministry, by the President's regulation, and also the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. The President regulation number 98. This is what I delete the 01, but number 98 2001 is basically tell the implementation of the carbon project in the forestry. The implementation of carbon pricing in Asia. Sorry. So this is one of the best sector for all of the carbon project and carbon pricing. Project and carbon pricing that have been implemented in Indonesia. This is the foundation of the regulation, and the second regulation is the ministerial regulation from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, number 21, 2022. They regulated about the implementation of the carbon project in the forestry. And in the next year, the Ministry of Environment Forestry also released about Ministerial Regulation number 7, 2023, about the procedure of the carbon trading. And during the same year, they also released the Minister Decree of the Minister from the Ministry of Environment Forestry of 1.027 about the carbon national trading of the roadmap forestry, so national carbon forestry roadmap. Sorry. And the last point is that the minister decree regarding about the technical guidance. This is what we wanted to focus about. So they published about the scheme and the guidance or the standard for the carbon project in Indonesia. So the scheme is regulated to this by this regulation of, we call it as SPEI, or skema sertifikasi pengurangan emisi GRK di Indonesia. So this is like the regulation that have been published, and also they have been published in Indonesia that implement especially in the forestry. So next slide. So the second is in how we and how we can actually produce this CBD, as this is like some kind of, this is getting from the SRN, the SRN PPI. This is the information that needs to be at least the basic record, some kind that we need to input within this PDD in SRN. Indonesia is the mitigation, what kind of activities of the mitigation and adaptation, and what is the sources of the fund, how much is it, and who is the experts within the team, and relevant activities, like will there be like any capacity buildings, and what kind of support of the technology, and etc. This is the kind of information that needs to be input within the PDD in Indonesia. So next slide. And according to the this year, the methodologies that have been updated and published from the Ministry of Environment to register the current project in SRN. There are actually 49 methodologies, 30 coming from the energy sector, 10 coming from the waste sectors, and 5 from the forestry sectors. While within these 5, there are 2 versions of the GST calculation for the pit. So there's actually like four methodologies, but there's this aggregate for the pit calculations, and also agriculture 3 methodologies, and FFU like 1 methodology. Next slide. And yeah, this is the general condition that need to be input within the PDD in Indonesia. First, PDD or kalau di Indonesia itu namanya DRAM, or dokumen rencana aksi mitigasi. Ya, sorry, dokumen rencana aksi mitigasi di scheme itu it need to use bahasa Indonesia language. So because the form itself is in bahasa Indonesia, it also need to be used bahasa Indonesia to fill them. And the calculation is also need to be formatted in bahasa Indonesia formatting. So for example, 1,000 is 1, not 1,000. And the methodology used that need to be input is coming from Ministry of Environment or by the Standard National or the UNFCCC. So this is the general conditions for the PDD in Indonesia in SRN. Next slide. Yeah, according to the SPEI, or Sertifikasi Pengurangan Emisi GRK Indonesia, the scheme regulations 1. This is the details in which we wanted to put into. There is details for the form of the PDD. We need to field, the detail activities, organization identity, representative and contact person, location of the mitigation action, the duration of the project, the contribution for the buyer, if there is any, like if there is any agreement within the buyer, and how many that we need to split the revenue itself. If there is any, we need to fill them also. Additionality analysis, method, the kind of additional activities that need to be analyzed and include methodology that have been approved, the one that we choose, calculation of emission reduction, environmental study and contribution, public consultation, resources, what kind of fund, with how, which sources do the fund come from, the status of the fund, the total fund, the fund structure, and if there is any technology that helps them, the reference, and the annexes. The annexes included the organization chapter, permanence risks, and monitoring actions. And in the PDD, we need also, if there is like any kind of revision, we need to also update them. So it is like kind of a filling form, a filling section of the version of the PDD or the history of PDD or drum. So that's next slide. Yeah, this is the PDD template. Like I've said before, like its registry have different requirements and also have a different methodologies, including, and it's really impacting it to the templates. For the left one is the template from the SPME or SSM, and the right one is from the gold standard form. This is different. This is different, but this is the first page of the PDD from this SM and also the standard. But we can see from, while it has like a different like language and also like kind of the structure, but in the first page it's there also exist similarities because each of these pages tell about the summarize of the project that we need to develop. So there is access, what kind of activities or what kind of project itself, the title of the project, and this is like there is some access similarities but have a different formatting. So yeah, next slide. And also for the last and but not least, that all kind of activities or procedure need to be documented. As I've said before, at the last stage, the PPB bodies need to verify for the PDD that have been developed. So all kind of the legal documents, technical documents, and procedures, and if there is any kind of, as I've said, capacity, the capacity buildings, if there's like a socialization first, it all need to be provided as proof within the PDD. So all kinds of activities, all kinds of documents to be need to be collected. So next slide. I think that's kind of a brief introduction from my side. This is next. Last but not least, this is kind of Indonesia procedure of the methodology. Sorry, bring this slide. So from the basic information from the PPI that we need to at least know what kind of the methodology, what the title is, and who is the project proponent, who is the one that developed them, the category of the methodology, the date, and also the descriptions from the description of the project itself. And after we fill them, there's kind of access. After we fill them, there will also after we fill them, there will need to be evaluated, and the finalize of the part of the steps is the ministry after it's verified and evaluated from the verificator bodies, they will release about the certifications of certification of this within their own website in SRM. Sorry. So I think that's it from my brief introduction for the PDP in Indonesia. And now I wanted to go with the main introduction, which is the pitfalls and the validation.
Okay, so this is a good segue to say good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm so happy to be here because this is the number 12 of the workshops we do under the inFuse initiative. More than 200 people has attended. And even more amazing is that around 60 of you have come back more than once. And as Sarfina mentioned, the goal of this initiative is to create a community of practitioners around sustainability, carbon markets, that can share common ideas, common projects, common needs in this emerging carbon market environment in Indonesia. And beyond that, sustainability to all of us contribute to have a low carbon and more resilient society in the future. So I'm Miguel Rescalvo. I'm one of the partners of Legend Consulting, and today I will try to go a little bit deeper in what Sarfina mentioned in a very practical way. I've been working as in validation verification of carbon projects from the very beginning of the carbon market and under the Kyoto Protocol. And I see there's a couple of PVVs in the room, TÜV, Nord, I think, and other TÜV around here, I think. And I used to work for DNV, the Norska Veritas, at that time, the largest verification company in the carbon market. I had the pleasure of being with them at the very beginning of the Kyoto Protocol in the CDM, where I was involved in many of those carbon reduction projects in actually Asia, where I was based in China. Then I had the pleasure of moving to California when the cap and trade system started there, and also learn a lot about other type of projects. So today's session is very practical. What are the typical mistakes that project developers, project owners, like this gentleman here, make when they do carbon projects? And we wanted to do this session because is an emerging market in Indonesia, is starting, and actually, and you all know the challenges around the voluntary carbon market and the moratorium imposed to that we all hope will be lifted one day. And we wanted to give this practical section of what are the typical things we see, what are the typical errors that we find, and you may consider some of them a bit silly, right, or small things. But I can tell you, being on the other side of the table, that those type of oversights can delay the project processes for months, right, in the validation verification of the project. So the examples I will provide are not the only ones, are not the most important ones. I think they are the most common ones that can lead to your project being delayed or not being eligible, right? So I think you had your phone with you. I think this is going to be an interactive section, so you need your phone, and please share your thoughts. So this is a simple question, right? How important do you think is to consider the typical pitfalls in the project documentation? You think is very important because it may stop your project from receiving any carbon credits or any carbon finance, or somehow important because it means it can reduce the emission reductions you get. Also, doesn't really matter so much because that's why the validation verification entity is there. They will help you to solve the problems, but not really important. You can change things as the project is happening. So What do you think? Why? Maybe you can introduce yourself and your background and explain why do you think it's very important. I think the room is small enough. We don't need a microphone. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Let's make it this easy.
Okay. I'm Diego. Yeah. In my background. So for this particular question, what is the ground error for a carbon project? It's very important because the first, it's really can lead to the project not receiving any carbon finance because if the during the implementation we found the errors and the VVB found it, then the opinion is somehow released as a negative opinion, then the project cannot be receiving any carbon finance. It's very important.
So anyone who agrees with him? No one agrees with you. So all of you disagree with him. So can anyone explain why do you disagree with him? It's not really a problem.
My comment is on the one is, I know we submit documentation, right?
Uh-huh.
But when we are doing a project, actually project coming in stages. Pre-FS, FS, PCI, and FID. The question is when is a good time to submit documentation? So you get good engineering documentation, clear on the project expectation, timeline, and so on. I think that's the key.
Okay, so let's see if we can. Oh, okay, but it seems that most people agree actually with you, not disagree. Okay, so it's very important, right? It can lead to actually your project being totally stopped. I think the extreme case of what you said, right? That the issues cannot be resolved, leading to what is called a negative validation opinion, right? So maybe this is a good reason to spend some time today talking about what happens. Okay. Project developer, like this here, who calculates the emission reductions based on the project for 7 years. That's the typical length of a crediting period. And for Verra, up at 20,000 tons per year and get 16,000 tons, 14, 18, 10, 16, right? The methodology and small scale methodology for those who are starting to be in the carbon market is that methodologies are more complex, right? The requirements to do the calculations, all calculations when you are designing the project, but also the monitoring and reporting already operating is much more difficult, right? So why smallest? Because they are easier to do. Okay, so the first estimation that the study tell us that these are the estimations, right? This project developer says that it's going to use a smaller scale method to use. So my question is, can this project be considered or not? So go to Slido and you can answer the question. Yes, the important value is the average emission reduction of the 7 years. So if you calculate the average of the 7 years, it will be less than 2 per year. The next option is no. The project to apply a large scale methodology, and the third option is yes, to do is to the year that you go beyond 20,000, right? So what do you think is the right? To volunteer to open the discussion. Have you already used your Slido? if verifiers, VVVs want to open the floor. Let's see what you're saying. The results. Show results. Okay. Most of you think that so we have 13 people, more than 13 here. Come on. You are many more than 13. I hang on. Who said that? Okay, now you. Okay.
Mine is just
Not working either. Okay, but you can give us your response. What do you think? Do you think it can be on a small scale or not?
I think that small, as long as it's impractical, it should be what if even though it's small, if it's impractical, then it's
When you have the conditions, is that you can apply it on a small scale methodology below 20,000 per year. And this project, one of the years of the 7, 20,000. So can you use a easier methodology for the calculations or not? Use? Okay, the correct answer here is that no, you cannot use an because one of the years goes beyond 20,000, right? And the years you go beyond the threshold, you must apply a larger, right? So again, these are the details you all need to understand for these rules. They're very specific rules and very specific like that. So one of the year goes beyond the threshold, you automatically go for the larger scale project. Okay?
There's no adjustment or domestic regulation of that case.
In the domestic regulation, you don't have the differentiation of large or small. It's not so critical.
in that case, we just have to.
You cannot.
I see.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the PowerPoint. Let's see now. So this is the first case. Second case, starting date of a project, right? So we have, in the carbon market, there is a definition for, right? So the logic many times does not apply here. The definition of a starting date of a project in each program is defined. The domestic regulation, chapter C.120. Indonesia, you consider a carbon project even if you have 5 years before the submission of what you call the PDD that you use it. So 5 years before the PDD is submitted to the right. Gold standard define the starting date of a project, the day that an important date for the project, right? The date on which real action to implement begins. That's the definition in gold standard. BCS has a definition, but gold standard is the most restrictive here, how it was applied in the CDM, right? So what does it mean, real action? So an example for discussion is we have a renewable energy that is going to start in July next year. In January 2024, secure a PPA and has entered into a contract with a supplier in a turnkey project, right? So is that the supplier will have before July 2025. And this is a binding scale with Siemens. And now the project developer, well, this project can have some carbon projects that I can sell in the market if the carbon market opens soon with the new government. So he wants to apply for carbon project. So my question is this project eligible for carbon finance? The project is going to start operation next year, and it has already a construction, a contract for construction, and realizing that they can apply for carbon finance. Complicated. What do you think? So is this project? I think we need to go to a slide though, because next question. You have some options there. Can you click one more to see that? There's no option. Okay, go back. Simple answer, right? Yes or no. Is applicable? Explain the response. One participant is typing. Come on. Okay, who are the two first who said no? Oh, there you have it. Yes, no. I now. No, okay, no is winning. Only 6. Is well balanced. So what, for example, here, what did you say? Yes or no? This part of the room. Raise your hand. Is eligible for as a carbon or not?
No.
Why?
Not implemented.
It's not implemented there.
No real action. No real action yet.
No real action. Okay.
No.
Well, sorry. Why there is no real action?
Yeah, because this is
Okay, that's a good point. What real?
they have to know action on this.
No, that's not the definition. Real action means you have a contract that is binding. What's the logic behind this? Think why we have these crazy requirements, right? The requirement here is that for a carbon project to earn carbon credits, you should finance to do the project, right? The idea is this, the idea of additionality, right? It means that without the carbon credits, your project is not viable, right? Okay, how can you explain to me that not financially viable if you have already committed to Siemens to pay them $100 million? It's a binding agreement. You have to pay them anyway, so you don't care about the carbon finance when you sign the contract. That is real. Is any decision that cannot be easily reversed and has some financial impact. For example, a feasibility study is normally not considered real action, so you can do a pre-feasibility study. The point is when you have committed to equity investment normally, right? So
in the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the final investment decision.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. The final investment decision is a good point. Before that, you were already discussing carbon finance with the project developer. You have that in the contract. You came to an inFuse work on finance, right? Okay, very important is not to when the project starts to operate, right? To when you made the decision to invest in the project and to not easily to reverse. And normally the point is final investment decision of a or a contract with a supplier, right? So, for example, to is already too late, right? Because you could invest without carbon finance, so you don't need it, right? And who, you know why is this? Well, have this strange requirement of demonstrate that you needed the carbon finance to do things. Why? That's a good answer, but in what respect?
You could finance it yourself without carbon robbing of finance that could have been financed.
Exactly, 10 points, right? inFuse medal, right? To be able to give it away. Very good. So the concept is that finance is limited, right? So there is not enough carbon in the world for everyone. So we need to make sure that only those who needed carbon finance is right. And you are able to build the MRT, or you are able to contract with Siemens without the carbon credits, you actually didn't need it, right? Good. Is it yes or no? Okay. The correct answer is no. Okay. Next one. Oh no, here. Sorry. So we have discussed now the importance of software project, the importance of what you consider real action in some of the programs. Now, I think it's very important to also discuss that in each, including the local ones, you have very specific applicability conditions. So each methodology tells you very detailed where it is applicable. In this case, the example is not from Goldberg, and is a fuel switch methodology from fossil fuels to in boilers for heat generation, right? And one of the applicability conditions is that in the case of the project activities that involve boilers, all boilers existing at the project to the implementation of the project should be able to operate until the end of the crediting of the project, right? Without any retrofitting or replacement. Everyone understands this concept of a crediting period. The crediting period is that you can claim your emission reductions. Here in Indonesia is similar to the years that you can renew twice, I think, right? Or once. So in this case, this project developer says in the documents, right, that all the boilers has been in operation in 1995. They have always been properly maintained and they can operate foreseeable future. So you are or you there, right? We need to help him in the is already answer one question. So when you see this in the PDD, what would you say? Are you happy with that? All my boilers are good to go. Well maintained. What do you think? Let's go to, is the aligned with the methodology requirements? Yes, the explanation in the PDD is good. Remember the boilers. Who comes from the industry here? We have a person from the industry there. No? So a boiler that is operating for 19 boiler. Very old, but how is 29? Okay. So Is the project aligned? So, okay, we have only one vote. Come on, click. Not enough information. This can delay the validation process. So I guess that is when the valid raise a clarification request. I don't know you call it like that here, right? Normally we have clarification and non-conformities of corrective action requests, right? Clarification request, you need to explain me more what you want to say. So not enough information, it can delay the process. Information, the issue can make the project not be eligible, so you will lose the carbon finance. Yes, the explanation is enough. Your boiler is in 1995. You have done the maintenance. So, and now the estimation reduction will have to be reduced. So you are from the industry, right? The boiler operating from 1995.
I think that's the whole. I mean, like
So you as a validator, what would you do? So what information do you need?
The retrofitting and the condition of the boiler.
That.
The balance.
Mm. Okay. So what's the average life of a boiler? 25, in fact. Yeah. So there is a table. You see, these are the crazy things in the carbon market for everything, right? There is a table with the average accepted for each type of equipment, and for this boiler is established at 25. So the methodologies give you different options. One of the table, and then you say this case is not applicable. The boiler is too old, right? It'll be operational 7 units for the carbon market, so you would change it anyway, right? And here is again this concept of additionality that this gentleman here mentioned before, right? So you boiler that is 29 years old, right? And in the next there's a high probability that you would change the boiler anyway, right? And that you would get a more efficient boiler that will have less baseline, right? So in this case, we to the PowerPoint. Again, it's very important that you read methodologies of the program you are using, the national methodologies, Verra, gold standard, very in detail. In this case, the answer that the project participant should determine and document the typical average of boilers in the country and sector in a conservative manner, taking into account this in the industry, right? So you can use research studies that the average timeline in Indonesia is more than 25. You can use that, but most of the case is there's a tool to determine the remaining lifetime of equipment. That is the one with a table that says that the typical timeline is 25 years old. So this project will not be eligible, in principle. Good. Questions, comments? No? Let's do more. Permits and legal requirements. I'm sure that you all have. We have a few legal people here, right? Who is from? We have okay. This question is for you. Okay. So we have a industry complex that has an energy efficiency project to be more efficient. The factory was established a long time ago. They don't have a permit. Say that they cannot get one because they new environmental regulation strict for them, and the equipment is too old, so they cannot get a permit. Right? It would cost a fortune to change the equipment to get a permit. So the answer for the legal people, the question for the legal people, go to Slido, you will get some options there, right? Can the manufacturing company go ahead with the carbon project? Here, can the manufacturing company go ahead? Yes, it is old and they can't do anything about permitting. It can apply for a deviation of the carbon program to ask them for mercy, right? We can't do anything. Sorry, please allow us to do the project. No, it must comply with all legal requirements. What do you think? We need a legal opinion on this.
I would say regardless of financing or not, you actually need to comply. And I would say like a very strict registry would require that for sure, right? I don't think there's, unless specifically mentioned that there are certain exceptions they would accept. I think the rule of thumb is that you actually need to comply with all legal requirements. I think that's like a no-brainer.
Okay, it's a no-brainer. Okay, good. So it's good to have it so clear. Maybe the owner of the factory doesn't have it so clear, right? Because he's saying, okay, what can I do? I mean, this factory is 50 years old, right?
I mean, if you're in a jurisdiction where basically there's an absence of the rule of law, right? It's basically the law of the jungle, and you will always have that question in your head. But I would say in a more mature jurisdiction where, you know, it's a given thing that you actually need to follow the law, right? No, it's not. It's different.
Okay. So does anyone disagree with him? I think that. What do you say again? Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's important. Yes, that's the right answer, right? So it's true that this happens, right? You have projects in the biomass industry, right? Very old sugar factories, for example, very old cement industries, factories that they've been there forever. Some of them, they can't do much about compliance, but it's fine that there's a part of that is how politicians handle that, but the carbon market doesn't want that, right? So it's no, you cannot get carbon finance for those projects, right? Okay, I think we have one or two more left. Oh, everyone got it right. Okay, good. It's good to have it so clear. Can we go to the PowerPoint? I think this is the last one. Again, I could give you, we could be doing this forever, right? So many examples. I just chose 4 or 5 to see we had some fun. So yeah, this is clear, right? So the project documentation shall include all the permits, the project compliance evidence, right? These people are going to ask you for those permits, the environmental and social impact requirements as per the jurisdiction, and you need to update them during the crediting period if required. Rifki, next one. Let's see we can. Okay, the stakeholders consultation. So whoever has been in inFuse workshops before, you know that we focus a lot about stakeholders and communities involvement, right? We had back Andreas helping us with a couple of blue carbon workshops, and all the carbon programs are being more and more strict in the requirements to how to do the stakeholder consultation, right? So in this case, I just got an example from Gold Standard that says that stakeholder consultations must occur prior to project implementation and must include both a local stakeholder consultation and stakeholder feedback round to capture any concerns from local communities. So here is a case, is a distributed solar project developer. You know what that is? Who can explain to the room what is a distributed solar project?
Off-grid?
Yeah, it's normally off-grid. Yeah. So, and the verifiers, had you seen any of those? distributed solar.
The eastern part, perhaps. Islands.
Yeah, so normally is off-grid solar devices that you give to families. You have one in each school, for example, and it's distributed energy. That's why it is called like that, right? Because you don't get it from the grid, but normally in remote islands, that in Indonesia now you use a lot of diesel generators for that, right? And there's a few programs that want to change that for solar, right? Solar plus batteries, yeah? You need the batteries to compensate the variability of the solar. Anyway, so a distributed solar project, and this is community-based, right? So normally is you give these solar devices to families, as I said, to the schools, to the community centers. So the community is somehow involved in that type of project, right? So there is a project developer for solar, and Bujani, you have a lot of experience on this, right? So he knows that the communities will be very happy, right? Because the diesel generator makes noise, smells. You need to go and buy diesel, right? Time to time. So he thinks they are going to be very supportive. So he uses a WhatsApp survey. You love WhatsApp here, right? That's I've seen whoever invented WhatsApp. I'm sure he has some ties with Indonesia, right? So it uses a WhatsApp survey to confirm with community leaders that are okay with the project. And based on this, he or she goes ahead and start implementing the household solar devices. So what do you think? Here the question is stakeholder consultation, a WhatsApp survey. Would that comply with the requirements?
Not sufficient.
Not sufficient. Why?
Because you really need the cities. This involves not just availability, electricity for each other, but also in terms of maintenance, in terms of paying the bills, paying the perhaps the local technician, which solar developer need to train them and then help the community if they have problems, technical problem. So they really got to discuss interactively together. Cannot sufficient through WhatsApp. That's my opinion.
You use WhatsApp for everything here. Why not? Not everyone has a telephone.
Yeah.
And second, I think the case mentioned that it only consults the community leaders. Actually,
Yeah,
we have to
that's
consult.
the other point.
Yeah, we have to consult. I don't know, maybe Gold Standard or Vera has certain requirements of how many households you have to do the survey. So yeah, that's the 2 points. So first would be the technological device that will be not everyone has, and second would be you can consult the community.
Okay. So WhatsApp is very useful, but not for this. Eh? Well, it's interesting. You know that in some countries, I don't know Indonesia, but many countries in Africa, the penetration of mobile phones is almost 100% of the population. Right?
But they can do the
I don't know. So the answer is in the rules again, right? So the answer is no, but not because, I don't think it's because WhatsApp is not the right thing, is that is because is in the case of this program, Gold Standard has a very specific requirement that at least one of the meetings shall be in person, right? Yeah. Can you? Well, I already gave the answer, so there's no point to use a Slido now. But yeah, the answer is the option is yes, community leader have been consulting. I think that's a good point. It's not only the community leaders who need to be consulting, right? The WhatsApp method is not appropriate. I personally don't think the method is the problem here. As I said, there are countries that cell phones are used for, I don't know here, but there are countries where definitely the cell phone is mostly the only way you have to interact with the communities, right? Yes, the project developer is the one who knows better how to do things. You disagree on that, right? And no, an in-person meeting is required. That's the answer, right? Is because in this case, again, read the rules, the methodologies, the answer, oh, I didn't know that, right? No, you need to know everything. These programs are complex. There are millions of rules.
Can you replace the in-person meeting with like a video conference?
No.
To be in person. Well, why is that the case?
Crazy rules in the programs, right? No,
the logic is if you want to interact with someone, you can achieve that by way of.
Yeah, I think
you sort of like determine certain nuances for like body behaviors, whatever.
Not only that, you don't know if behind the camera is one guy with a gun.
Okay.
In the head,
That
right?
also applies to in person.
Right?
I would say.
Yeah. Please.
I just have a simple kind of technical similar with the like we are on fighting in drafting IA documents or using the presentation of the community representative. For instance, when we applied environmental impact assessment, try to invite a number of persons who are presenting with but not all in person. Like, it's to, no matter what's the methodology, but it's just need to invite the person who is really representing there. It's not all, like maybe not all to invite, but it's just okay people.
Yeah.
In one.
So the point there, I think, is how do you decide who are the right stakeholders to be invited, right? And it cannot be only the community leaders. It cannot be only the business owners. It needs to be also, especially in this time, you need to decide the right stakeholder for the project, right? In this case, as Bujani said, it is about households, so they need to pay a bill, right? They need to maintain the equipment, so families will be impacted, right? We think that positively, right? Because it's better to have a solar device that diesel generator, but they will have questions, right? I'm not going to have electricity for cooking dinner, right? Because it's dark already. How do I pay the bill, right? How I can go and buy diesel when I want, but I need to pay the bill one day, right? That is when the bill comes. I may not have money. So, but the question is, you need to get the right stakeholders in the room for the type of project you are doing. But then if the question is, can you do it together with environmental impact assessment? I don't see any problem on that, right? To do the environmental impact assessment, you also need to have the right stakeholders in the room, as long as you have also questions related to the carbon component, right? Yeah. You have a comment there also?
No, just one. This rule solar project. You need to educate the stakeholder that the solar panel cannot rely 24. Limited time when you can use.
Yeah. Well, you have now more and more battery devices that help on that, right? But yes, but not even that will last for 24 hours, right? Yeah.
Yes, topic of tonight. Got to be properly prepared and implemented. For example, this is patients. The part of the small kampung and also district, also CC, and then also when it's already happened, you have a list of participants. Because one day, all of a sudden, the district leader will ask, have you done this yet? How many people participate? Who are participating? Can I see the list? If this is also the same case with the understudy of a project also required public consultation or community consultation. Okay, thank you. And minutes of meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think that this was the last example I had. So I wanted to give you a flavor of the nitty-gritties of this process of having developing a carbon project, right? Yeah. Photos of the consultation processes, right? So, yeah. And the most important part is that you listen to them, right? I mean, is that you listen to them and adapt your project as necessary to what they need, right?
It's still get basically find this process of doing consultations. That's why when it is a process, it means it need to be really started from identifying the right stakeholder until the end of the meeting. So it's not just simply by inviting stakeholders, but it's really kind of like making stakeholder analysis.
Of course, and is this what we call, right, the participatory justice and the consultative justice, right? Is not only inviting them, is making sure that the way you do the consultation is the appropriate one to engage those stakeholders who normally do not participate, right? So in your community, you normally know that if there are women and men together in a room, women are never going to talk. Well, you shouldn't do the stakeholder consultation with women and men in the room at the same time, right? You should differentiate them, right? If young people are never going to start up if the community leaders are in the room, right? If the community leaders are in the room, this is typical, right? They are the only ones who talk, right? And no one, the rest of the people say yes, right? So then you need to design a consultation process that takes that into account, right? So it's not only who do you consult, is what are the right methodology to do the stakeholder consultations, right? Okay, so just one more question in a slide for you as a conclusion. Can we, what do you think is the most common problem in carbon projects? Baseline calculation, so that means the estimation of your emission reductions, additionality, this gentleman gave us a good example of that. Leakage, who knows what leakage is? Who doesn't know what leakage is? Leakage is those emissions that are due to your project that do not happen where your project is, but happens in a different location, right? An example of leakage. Someone says CCS, you said, okay, why is CCS?
Yeah, for example, we put the CO2 underground, right? Can be maybe 10 or 20 years injections.
Leakage. And maybe not where you injected it, right? Maybe you see it 10 kilometers away, right? There's other example of leakage now being discussed in Indonesia, right? So you close a coal-fired power plant, right? And you reduce emissions in Indonesia, and that coal is sold to India, right? So you are not changing anything, right? You are reducing emissions in Indonesia, and the emissions is happening in India. That, by the way, has less efficient boilers than Indonesia. So you are actually causing more emissions than what you have here, right? That's a perfect example of leakage, right? So verification, those guys are the ones to blame. They are, or those guys are the problematic ones, right? They never have time for us. They ask crazy questions. It takes 1 year to do a verification. This lady agreed with me, by the way. You don't see her face, but she's saying yes, yes, yes. So the problem, the VVVs are the problem, right? When I was in that business, it could easily take 1 year to do a validation. There was not enough people in the market, right? Any project could take 1 year to do the validation because there were no people, not enough people qualified to do validations, verifications. And a validation or verification could cost easily close to $200,000. Right? Because there was no so whoever was paying more was getting it. It's free market, supply and demand, right? Okay, so come on. 24 people are registered. What? It's already closed. Okay. So what do you think? The verifiers are the problem, right? Is that what we agree? Or, I mean, do you have anything to say on your defense? Additionality. Someone is saying additionality. Yeah. Baseline, so the calculations, right, are the problem. I think there is a verifier there who agrees on that, right?
Can you say that legal requirements are part of the
They are not part of the additionality, but it's true, it's not in the list, but it's a problem, right? It's a legal requirement that you don't comply with. You haven't got your environmental impact assessment done, or it's been done not in compliance, you don't have the permit yet, etc. Right? That's a good point.
Listen to justify verifications. Verification back and they just say that basically there's nothing wrong with this verification or something like that. We just need.
He's a verifier, right?
Yeah.
So that's why he thinks there is nothing wrong with the verification, right?
Yes. The requirements to add this for you.
Yeah. Okay. I may not agree with him that there is no problems in the verification. I mean, we are talking about carbon projects that are already being done, right? So yeah, of course, you need the right policies to have carbon projects, right? So we all here are working towards a situation where you have in Indonesia your domestic scheme now. That, by the way, the rules are more relaxed than these ones, right? In most of the cases, and then we are also hoping that the voluntary carbon market opens again, right? And you can start doing this. So just to give you a few figures, some studies show that the difference between emission reduction that are verified and the ones that were validated are around 30%, right? In some sectors like AFOLU is up to 50%. Meaning that when you think that you have 1 million tons of CO2, you end up with 700,000 tons of CO2, right? And the main reasons for that difference is because of the baseline, right? Yeah. Baseline of emission reduction calculation. So the baseline was overestimated. By the way, you see in the media a lot of criticism with baselines and emission reduction overestimation. Some of them are real problems and things that were not done properly. But think that that many times the baseline is done ex ante based on modeling, right? So it's very easy to criticize today a model that was done 15 years ago when the CDM market started or the BCS market started, right? And there was the models, the mathematical models for emission reductions from waste management, wastewater, forestry. The mathematical models were less sophisticated than today, right? It's really easy today to say, oh, the emission reductions were overestimated. Yeah, because 20 years ago, no one had a crystal ball, right? To see what could happen. And again, technology has advanced for the good, right? So there's this, 30% average difference because of the calculations, because of the monitoring processes. So you have done a project and the monitoring and reporting of your emissions is not aligned with what you promised to do at the beginning, right? So the emissions are discounted, right? So that's a big problem. But I would say of these ones, the one that brings more problems to the process is the additionality, right? As it was said before, right? Is how do you justify that you really need it carbon finance to move this project forward, right? Okay, so the idea this morning was to give you a flavor of these requirements under some of the most common programs used, Verra, Gold Standard, and the local program here in Indonesia. I hope that the outcome is that you understand that there's a lot of rules with many details that you need to read. You need to read between the lines, and some of them are not always logic, yeah? But those rules are complex and are there to preserve integrity, right? We want carbon projects that are real, that are additional emission reductions that, again, are real and can be verified, right? So with this, if you have any question, any comment, feel free to ask. So I invite you to go back to your work and maybe, yeah, open the, I've met many people in the carbon market working on this that they have never opened their carbon market rules, the gold standard rules, the Verra rules, that, by the way, are not easy to find. You go to the web page, and even myself need to spend 5 minutes trying to find what the heck those guidelines and rules are, right? So I invite you to go home and go to your office and logging into Verra, Gold Standard, or read the national regulation and compare them. How is the starting date of a project defined in the SPI here in Indonesia? That, as I said at the beginning, 5 years before validation. That, by the way, I wonder, how do you justify additionality there, right? 5 years before validation. I mean, 5 years ago, you didn't know you needed carbon finance. So, okay. So go and compare that with Verra or Gold Standard to see what it says. Please. Additional workshops? Yes. Well, you want, I mean, this is exactly what we want to do. We have this community, right? inFuse, you are all online now. As I said, we have more than, as now is almost 300 people came to the workshops. We have almost 350 people registered in the community. We are happy to adapt the workshops to what you need. You want to do one specific one on Gold Standard, we are happy to organize that.
Especially today under the PCS.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of potential projects beyond the industry. And the plan is government plan to attract investor.
Yes.
For cross-border emission. PCS is very interesting.
Yeah. So we can do workshops that are technology specific, for example, CCS projects, happy to do that. Program specific, Gold Standard is a very interesting program, right? And you know that Gold Standard credits normally have a premium, right? So those are the most expensive one in the markets because the rules are more strict, right? So yeah, we are happy to do that. I think next week, you know, COP is coming, right? COP 29, I think, right? In Baku, in 2 weeks. I think next week, the idea is to have the workshop on preparation for Baku, for COP 29. So we will share with you what can happen in COP for carbon markets, especially Article 6, how different countries will negotiate, what is pending to be decided. So hopefully, I think we can get a fantastic speaker who we have already more or less confirmed, Bukuki. I don't know her last name. What is it? Yeah, exactly. So she was a negotiator for Indonesia in the past. She was also the co-chair of the technical committee of Article 6, SEPSTA, right? Yeah. So, and the idea is to share with you and the community what can be expected in COP29 this year, right? And then the week after, we have one that is explaining what is happening in